listening to some of your comments about who the investors are and how much money they have, and in particular, I heard one comment that a lot of the angel investors are not the Silicon Valley type investors, but they're people who make between $200,000 and $400,000 a year and have some extra cash that they want to invest into venture capital. I think it was you, Ms. Mott, that said that, and that 2/3 of your investors now are strapped financially and have. Many of you said they're sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what the rules are here in Washington and what the game's going to be. And in light of all that, when we look at some of the budget proposals that we're seeing right now in Congress, especially as it relates to people who make over $250,000 a year and some possible tax increases on those people, that seems to fall in that $200,000 to $400,000 range that you're talking about, the angel investors. So how would the proposals that we're seeing here with the administration and Congress on raising taxes for those making over $250,000 affect the ability or maybe the availability of the angel investing funds from those people who are in that market range? If I could ask all of you that.
We've already been impacted dramatically by, when you see your net worth decline by 46%, it impacts the marginal income you have to invest. But it's also a matter of I lost my train of thought. Let me put it this way. Typically what you can invest in if you're doing good practical portfolio management, 5 to 10% of your investable assets is what you risk in this asset class. So whether it's hedge funds or anything in this, because it's considered a very risky asset class, suddenly you see that go down. In that 5 to 10% that you had, you no longer have. And so additional taxes are only going to impact that marginal that you can invest and at risk, because it really is at risk. Because 5 of these companies out of 18, you will lose, they will go bankrupt. You will lose your money on it.
Okay. Mr. Walker?
Thank you. I agree. It's we're taking essentially that money that would be available for startup companies away. There are other things we could do. For example, Mr. May's testimony on a tax credit or incentive to those private investors who make targeted investments in emerging growth companies. So perhaps that's a catalyst to help offset this discussion.
Yes, sir. I like that idea. Mr. May?
As I say, it's almost impossible to get 3 of us, much less 380 at a conference or 12,000 to agree on any one public policy area. But the key thing we find is that these are people who are dedicated to doing this. They love to recycle their funds and their time and give back to the community. So one of our concerns is that there's so few people that are very wealthy that ever do this. I mean, it's just amazing that it's in the blood of a lot of people. And you're right, we need to have as much capital in their hands as possible because they know what to do with it and they take the risk of multiple portfolio companies. But we haven't ever sort of come up with any one magic bullet. And so that's why we try to, as you say, explore a variety, whether it's sidecar funds, whether it's encouraging the later stage money that will pick up when we run out of money, whether it's low capital gains. I just think all the things you're exploring are important. And yes, anything that would reduce our amount of capital is not necessarily good, but that doesn't mean that they'll spend it on angel investing unless that level playing field is also worked on.
Sir?
For our company and the BDCs in general, our investors are really mom and pops who invest to get the dividends, fixed income. So they are participating in private equity. So I think that what's important is that they have the transparency and the confidence and the appropriate sort of rules that they can understand what we're investing in and where the creditworthiness of our portfolios are. Yet the accounting issues are making that transparency challenging for us. So I do think that it's less of an issue about sort of the taxes at that level, but people are investing in BDCs as a way to get access to private equity, but also want to sort of get that current income. And because of the lack of transparency, the entire BDC stocks have had a downward spiral. And not because of book value, but because the concern about tripping covenants based upon assets that move every day based upon hypothetical markets for 100% of our portfolio, yet we hold it over 90% as industry to maturity, but the liabilities are fixed. So we have to pull back our capital to protect against that when we should be lending our capital and have the desire to lend and available capital to the middle market and small companies.
Okay. Mr. Knapp?
Let me try to be very, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I'll
Let
get
me
both
try to
of
be
them.
very direct. There's no question that increased tax rates have an adverse impact on capital formation. I don't think I need to say anything more. Capital formation, whether it's institutional like I do, or whether it's individual like some of these folks do, is very fragile. And anything that increases uncertainty and anything that increases a feeling that you have less capital available to you has an adverse impact on the ability to pool that capital and deploy it effectively.
I agree with Mr. Neff. Most of our investors are institutional investors, university endowments, pension funds, so they're not directly impacted by that particular tax provision. They're mostly impacted, frankly, by the destruction in the equity markets and the fact that they have no liquidity at this point.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask one more question, if possible, because I know we got to go vote. One of the other things I'm concerned about is we're talking about tax policy as we're having various hearings about bonus money and clawbacks and retroactively taxing and things like that. Do you ever get concerned, as I do, that some of our U.S. money, investment money, some of our corporate money may go out of the country if we start increasing capital, increasing capital gains tax, increasing corporate tax, I should say, increasing capital gains tax and changing the rules all the time, that they may just take it to one of those foreign countries you were talking about that had zero capital gains tax?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
You know, we already have, some of my colleagues are already looking, they're in China, they're in Australia, on the West Coast. So, yes, they're already looking.
Yes, I think maybe another a way to look at this again is we should be doing things that are a catalyst for small business creation, regardless of the industry. And the more we can quit changing the rules and keep a level playing field and provide some incentives as a catalyst to create companies is the way to go.
I think what you've addressed has more of an impact on foreign capital flowing into the U.S. than it does on
That's
U.S. capital flowing outside of the U.S. because an individual U.S. citizen making an investment in Hong Kong will have U.S. taxes on that, not Hong Kong taxes on that. But the other way around is definitely true. If big pools of foreign capital, which traditionally do flow into this country, can get much lower tax rates outside of this country, they are not as likely to flow into this country.
I agree with Mr. Neff. That's the same issue for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.